and let their body relax, totally relax, and then start to visualize in their mind, see themselves the way they want to see themselves. Now, understand that that's a picture in your mind, and then take that picture and describe it, write it out in the present tense. I am so happy now that I see myself, and write it out. Start to read it and read it and read it every day. Carry it around and keep reading it. The one point that all the great teachers all down through history have all agreed on, they've been in complete unanimous agreement on it, we become what we think about. Now, it may be fantasy at first. It might even appear to us as being a lie. But if you read it often enough, you'll start to believe it. And when William James said, believe and your belief will create the fact, you will see the person's personality change.
Today we're having a beautiful conversation. We're going to discuss responsibility, who is responsible for saving us, the mindset that is needed to acquire the necessary freedom and salvation we're so desperate of and so in need of, and also a deep dive into current events, where I've been, and what we got coming up down the pipeline. Let's get going.
Get ready for power. Prince's Power Hour podcast.
Peace and blessings, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. It is so great to be back, my brothers and sisters. I've been away for a little bit, but that's a conversation for another time. We most certainly will get into all of that, where I've been, what I've done, what has changed, and what we have developed over our time apart. But again, like I said, that's a discussion for a later day. We will dive into that because I believe it's some utility in that conversation, because a lot of times when we don't see a person, we always wonder what they're up to. Why did they stop? Why haven't they been so active? Is it personal issues? Is it a lack of interest, or have they given up their desire to do what they love to do? So again, none of those were the case, but there is truth in everything. So we will discuss exactly, again, where I've been during my absence and what has transpired. But today, I want to dive right into the conversation. First and foremost, giving all honor and praise to the creator of the heavens and the earth, Yah Yisrael. I want to thank my ancestors, and I want to thank all of those who are striving for peace, striving to bring into existence a just-filled world. Now, with that being said, I didn't want to make this particular show, a recap of all that has been going on in America and globally. It's a discussion that we can have relative to Israel and Palestine. And there will be a time for that. There will be a discussion about the Hebrews in Israel and what's our position, what are we doing, are there any differences with us that over here in America between those who are in Israel and our brothers and sisters that's in the IDF? We can discuss that, and there will be a time for that. It's a discussion about Ukraine and Putin and everything that's going around that with Russia. The American dollar plummeting unlike any other time. Other nations taking a position and a stance globally that they're not going to be subordinate to America any longer, that they're going to take their own financial, geopolitical lives into their hands. It's a discussion about that. We could talk about Biden, who seemingly for the last year has given doubt and suspicion about not only the soundness of his mind, but the possibility of him even being physically alive. We could talk about Trump, the failed assassination attempt. Was it actually legitimate, or was it cloak and dagger? Was it another deep state fake by America and the powers to be? Or the continuous murders that are being displayed by social media outlets of white people, in particular, white police officers who are murdering our brothers and sisters in cold blood. The most recent case with our sister down in Springfield, Illinois, who was murdered in our own home. And I may touch that a little bit. But my primary focus for this conversation and other conversations going forward, and I believe the way I'm going to kind of dissect this, it's going to be, all of them lead right into the next, rather. But the emphasis on the mindset that is needed to truly understand what we must do and the times that we are in, because it's almost if all of the strives and the believed progress that our forefathers and foremothers have made to get us to a position to have knowledge of self, to have a sense of independence, to have a desire and a taste for autonomy, to develop a yearning for our own governance, has all yet been in vain. It is diminished. Has become a thought that we once entertained, but now come to the conclusion that there is no utility in pursuing that. And so that isn't something that logical, functioning people conclude in their lives. We always talk about mental health, right? And that's been the subject matter ever since COVID that has been exacerbated, significantly, and rightfully so, right? Mental health. We're having a mental health crisis. And my perspective is always going to be from the perspective of Black people in particular in the diaspora, but globally, because your reality and my reality and our reality is different and unique from most people on the planet. And so what is prescribed for us as a solution is uniquely different from other groups, ethnicities, and races. So I can't speak, blanketly for everyone when I speak about mental health or these other issues that are pertinent to the Black community. I have to go into detail. I have to be a little bit more precise with my language. I have to be a little more exact with my analyses, because I would be doing you, myself, and us a great disservice if I only spoke from the vantage point of, everybody, as if we're a monolith, right? That's a saying that we hear, continuously in the Black community as a means to try to discredit real unity or a commonality that we can all galvanize around relative to our future. Well, Black people are not a monolith. Like, it's the most asinine thing that I hear, us speak as if that's without question. Neither is the body. The skeletal system functions different than the muscular system. The endocrine system is a little bit different than the lymphatic system. The circulatory system has different components and a different function than the nervous system. Yet and still, they're interconnected, and their participation in their unique roles all contribute to the life of that single organism. Black people, whether you want to understand it, agree to it, or accept it, we are already a single organism, right? Like, there is no real distinction in the reality of our condition and what we have been victimized by these societies who has placed us in a permanent underclass, who have conditioned us and trained us to have such an inferiority complex that we never see ourselves as perpetuators and purveyors of our own world. That everything we do has to either be legitimized, substantiated, or accredited by the dominant society. That's a mindset, brothers and sisters. That is really a pathology that we're suffering from relative to our inability to acquire freedom. So, with that being said, the subject matter, as I stated earlier, who is responsible for our freedom? Who is responsible for saving us? You know, words are so important to me, right? Not because I try to, flex my vocabulary or my ability to, at points and times, utilize the extensiveness of the English language and its vast use of words and their applicable use relative to being able either to empower or to confuse the listener, right? But language is so important. That's why I know some of us kind of cringe when we hear scriptural references, but they are so pertinent to our daily lives, whether we understand it or not, because the truth that is in that book is a truth that has not just relevance, but salvation if properly understood. And it says at the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was good. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? It's like when we look at the ability to understand the power of word, yeah, it is a low form of communication, but properly oriented speech is the most powerful weapon or tool that is used in the human experience. Everything starts with the word when you're talking about the actualization of change. So when Israel, he who has power, or he who wrestled with God, who has power over God and man, wrestled in the scripture, it says, with the angel, or some kind of define it as God. I believe he wrestled with the word. What word did he wrestle with? With the ability to define oneself in one reality, that his speech would be oriented not to the subordination of another people, but to the reality of his own empowerment. So therefore he went from Jacob to Israel. So we wrestle with words, these conversations that we have. I'm going to break down the word responsibility. I'm going to give the English Webster definition, and then I'm going to interject some spiritual Hebraic thought into it to give us a deeper understanding, in my humble opinion. We wrestle with the word because we wrestle with our ability either to be defined by others, or to have the ability to self-define. Our spiritual leader, Ben-Ami HaMashiach, His Excellency, in his book, his profound writing, the first one that we were privileged to have, God, the Black Man in Truth, had a chapter outlined the power to define, and what rests in the hands of every people. It's its ability to define its own reality, or the punishment of the inability to define their own reality. And we have been a people that have not truly encapsulated the power and utilized the power of definition of oneself. And if we have, we flirt with it to a point that, we have strides, and then somehow, some way we get worn down to the parts and to the pieces that allow us to accept the definition of somebody else. So, I'm getting ahead of myself, I know, but it flows. The responsibility, first, of a people who are serious about their future and the freedom of not just themselves, but the sustaining of that freedom that allows the generations to come to benefit from that freedom, to enjoy that freedom, and to use that freedom to be the creative producers and curators of a world that is in line and in harmony with the creation of the universe. You got to be able to define. Responsibility. First definition, the state of being responsible, answerable or accountable for something within one's own power, control, or management. a particular burden of obligation upon one who is responsible. The responsibilities of authority. So it's two-pronged. The first definition, the state of being responsible, and we know responsible simply means answerable or accountable for something within one's own power or control, the management of oneself. When you understand the power of responsibility, you understand the power of self-control. The only thing that we actually have power over, brothers and sisters, is our own lives. And I mean that, and that can be a tricky statement in its own right, because those of us who understand divine intervention and the cosmic powers and the ancestral forces and the primordial forces that we believe existed before the presence of humans on this planet, those things are active, those things are at play. But it goes back to what I stated earlier, the mindfulness that is needed to recognize that I do not control, nor should I seek to have control over the choices of others. Rather, the power that I possess within inside of me gives me the ability to influence others, which then has a power in its own right, because power has been perverse by the Eurocentric thinking and the way of applying that word to dominate, to subjugate, to maim, to murder, and to brutally strip a people of its essence that it no longer seeks to identify with its original self. That's not power, brothers and sisters, at least in its most truest essence. Power is the beauty of understanding self-discipline and self-control, and then the implementation of those things to advance, improve, and to promote life so abundantly that it is attractive to others and they seek to follow your example. Who is responsible for saving us? Due to our inability to understand the reality of our responsibility, we seek, and we see it evident, and this season is so beautiful. Every time we have a national election, a lot of us, unfortunately, relinquish, renounce, and forsake the power of responsibility, which is a gift that we have, to some other person and or entity. Again, this isn't something that happened in a vacuum. This is innately the reality of Black people. Yes, you have undergone a 500-year experimentation and the almost seemingly eradication. I mean, to attenuate this self-resolve and identity that we once had by the European powers of chattel slavery, of Jim Crowism, of mass hate and terrorism that we have faced, the raping and the perversion that we have encountered continuously, is not a small thing or something to overlook and or try to minimize its impact. But the reality is that we have come to a point of remembering enough of who we are and what we are innately, and the ethnogenesis that has formed and made us and created us to something new, even than which we were before we encountered the European, before we were brought over here on the slave ships through the Middle Passage. We have developed a sense of self to be aware to the reality of our condition, but we keep falling short because when we get to a point of resistance, the burden that we believe is a burden, but it's the greatest gift of responsibility of one's future and what it actually takes to obtain that, again, is renounced and relinquished, and we give it to somebody else. Hey, Mr. White Man President, will you fix this for me? And I'm not saying don't involve yourself in the political process, but never involve yourself into any process of power that has you as a subordinate and a beggar and just a partitioner for power. Power concedes to nothing but power. So if there's weakness and there is a delineation between those who have power and those who are seeking power or want to utilize the power of someone else, simply by asking and or marching or protesting, or some would say begging, then you're going to always keep yourself in a perpetual sense, in a cyclical cycle of just doing those things. What is needed to change? Okay. We are fall victim, black people, and the reality of the function that has consumed our psychological and sociological realities has been the tethering ourselves to European society, a concept that come out called white-centeredness. Listen to this. White-centeredness creates an assumed psychological disposition when a person and or persons assume the identity of their oppressor. It in itself is an attempt to survive, and it creates a narcissistic, because to emulate your oppressor, you have to become narcissistic to a degree, part of your brain that causes a hallucination or at best an anxiety-based embellished illusion of oneself, which makes you fall in love with the utility of the lie. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche, who's a German philosopher and writer and author from the 1800s, had a line. He said, "I can write in one sentence what it takes my counterparts a book to write or say." I bring him up because the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, he had a simple truth that was superior to all truths, which we're taught were given to him by Almighty God, is that he gave us the knowledge of self, the knowledge of God, and the knowledge of devil. Why is that so important? Why is that so superior? Because when you know those things, it is almost impossible. I've seen some do it, and we vacillate to a degree, even the best of us who strive to really encapsulate that understanding and to live by the teachings and the truth. But it's almost impossible to live a hallucination on an illusory lifestyle that is predicated to you trying to uphold a lie and find value in that lie. Like, it's hard for you to eat a certain way once you reveal the certain truth of who you are and what your enemy is and why he has fed you the food that he does. It's almost impossible, brothers and sisters, to place yourself in the religions and the institutions of your enemy and to see value in it, like intrinsic value, when you know the reality of those things. So the white-centeredness that we have succumbed to, that creates, again, our attempt to try to emulate our oppressor, is the root of all of our degenerate, criminal, disrespectful, and inappropriate and immature behavior. If I just work harder in the system, if I just get this more paying job, if I acquire these degrees, if I go to church more, and again, this isn't me diminishing or trying to downplay those particular pursuits of what we've come to see as societal advancements, because there's utility in that to a degree, but it has to play into a larger plan. It has to be strategic in is that I am not going in to amalgamate more and to emulate more of the societal norms that we know has destroyed the very fabric of not just us as a people, but of the planet. The planet is in ruins due to the fact that these societal norms have become commonplace. The conveniences that we have, though we all enjoy them, simultaneously makes our lives perceivably easier, but then we are kicking this proverbial can down the road where we are destroying the future generations to come. Because we are giving them in a world that they would inherit that won't even benefit them. The utility of the lie. Due to the fact that it is unnatural and unhealthy to live a lie, my father used to teach our community in Israel, the Mona, taught that the planet is rotating on the axis of a lie. That means that, as it was explained to me, that all of the life systems of the planet is functioning on complete deception or half truths, which in most cases is almost worse than complete deception, because to the God mind, even if it is dormant within inside of you, can pick up complete deception, but half truths, deception sprinkled with some bit of factual evidence, is the most crippling, because it's hard to discern, especially from an untrained mind. I don't care what you think you're eating. I don't care how you think you are performing certain exercises. I don't care if you have a perceived family or wife. Those structural things, again, all important. We promote all of those things. But if it's not based on truth, what is truth? The ability to be in harmony with the immutable laws of the universe. What's immutable? Permanent. Why is that important? What are the permanent laws? Well, example is the law of reciprocity, the law of obedience and sacrifice, the law of you reap what you sow, the law of the promulgation of health, which via is I only do the things that sustain or give life and not the things that retract. If you're in harmony with those particular things, you produce truth. Because truth has, as we're taught by a spiritual leader, Ben Ami, Hamashiach, that it has the inherent power to produce the promised effect. That means that if you submit to the process of truth, truth isn't just a identifying facts or historical events. Truth is a process of committing yourself to the laws, the ordinance of the creation. So when you are outside and operating outside, and that's a heavy topic, and we really got to go deeper into that, but I will be a little bit long-winded than I want to. So I'm not going to go as deep as I would like to, but if there's a question, we can definitely have a conversation about it. But simply put, when you operate outside of the paradigm of truth, you put yourself in the most unhealthy and unnatural state possible. When you lie to yourself, you are incapable of success. When you lie to yourself, you are incapable of true happiness. Because the lie burdens you to a point, it imprisons you that you can never actually function with a peace of mind. That's why Yeshua or Isa or what the world calls Jesus, he said, you shall know the truth, and that truth shall make you free and keep you free. Lies imprison you mentally, psychologically, sociologically, and even physically. To affirm, let me read this again. Due to the fact that it is unnatural and unhealthy to live a lie, to continue the lie, one seeks others to affirm the lie, to find some sense of meaning, and to make it true. Whew. Group bias, where you don't substantiate the validity or the utility of an idea based on its actual utility and its functionality. Does it perform the way it should to improve your life? We base truth or what is true on how many people can agree to it. Well, if everybody's conditioned by the deceptive means in which has promulgated that lie, then you're going to get a lot of people that are going to agree with you. But the more people to agree don't necessarily mean that it's true or that you're practicing truth. In this day and time, the most revolutionary thing that you can do is tell the truth. Why is that the case? Because again, as I said, my father stated, the world is rotating on the axis of a lie, meaning that it has become the order of the day. Well, hell, everybody lies. What's so important about a lie? I mean, this is a little white lie. I mean, I lie to them every, when I got to get a couple more dollars or when I need to, not hear my old lady from yelling at me or whatever the case may be. Tell my daughter to lie when the bill collectors come and say I'm not here. Tell her to lie to her teachers and say that she's going home to her parents, but in actuality, well, I gotta work, so I mean, it's a good lie. So we try to justify the lie, and can't come to the conclusion and why we can't progress. But when someone or something, this is the key part, threatens that lie, they become not just defensive, but offensive. And not just with their words, but with their physicality. This is still the framing of white-centeredness. Who's responsible for saving us? Well, hell, it ain't you, because you have relinquished your own identity. You've relinquished truth. You've relinquished the responsibility of self-accountability. And the greatest gift of God is responsibility. And I'm going to tell you right now, brothers, if you're a man, you want to obtain as much responsibility as you can. Not in the sense that you kill yourself prematurely by trying to make everybody else's life easier, in the sense of you take on other people's responsibility erroneously, but you take on responsibility in the sense that you seek to do the greatest amount of good by taking on challenging things. What is the most challenging thing a black man can take on in this day and time? It is the regaining of his identity, the power, and the overthrowing of this wicked system that we have been victimized by for 500 plus years. That's the only responsibility that you should even be striving for in whatever capacity that you are adequate enough to fulfill. I'm not telling you to do this thing or that thing if you haven't had the proper preparation or training, but whatever you prepare yourself to do in this world, whatever you have learned and developed in this world as a gift and as a talent and a skill, I don't know what that was, you use that to remove the system that is in play that has destroyed the very essence of humanity. But when you reach our people and you speak to them with this level of conviction and confidence and truth, because you know the power it has, if they haven't come to the reality of their reorientation and their subordination to the lie, and because they found some utility in the lie, because they can have some sex or they make some couple dollars that they can live in a somewhat decent home, or they can drive what they believe to be a nice car, it's utility in the lie. Maybe they have a nice job that gives them some type of visibility or believe prominence, which in cases it may be to a degree in this world. But what are you using those positions, those skills, the acquisition of wealth for, or material wealth for? Is it to fall victim of that lie? But when you come and you speak to that reality, and you don't even have to be disrespectful or overbearing with your speech, just the mere mention of the possibility that what they're doing isn't really producing the effect that they believe it to be. Their heightened sense of defensiveness comes on them, and they turn into a ravaging beast, and they will try to kill you. And I don't mean literally to a sense, but their thing is, I gotta stop this Negro who may be an obstacle in me continuing this way of life, even though inside I'm tormented. But when someone or something threatens that lie, they become not just defensive, but offensive and attack, even putting their lives in danger, because they, in behavior, would rather die than give up the lie. Sigmund Freud said, to possess a complex is to be possessed by that complex. What do I mean by that? Psychologically speaking, when you accept a thought that the root of it is sickness, if you live out actions that either continues or perpetuates or cause sickness, you are that sickness. So the proverbial cancer isn't in you or even on you. You are the cancer. I was sharing with my brother the other day that was a gentleman may God be pleased with his soul, who years ago was diagnosed with cancer. And we all know somebody like this, so I can say it and it not be regarded as disrespectful. But I told him that he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and as soon as he got his diagnosis, his response wasn't, well, let me utilize this time to see if I can reverse it or if I can live a healthier lifestyle. He said, well, I guess I already got the cancer, so I'm going to continue to smoke. I'm going to die anyway. And so even if he couldn't, which I don't believe that personally, reverse that death sentence, he could have lived or improved vastly the quality of life for the remainder of his years, that he could have been more of a grandfather, father that's present and active to those who loved him and cared for him. But because his mindset has become the cancer, it wasn't even an option. No, I'm going to keep on practicing death. I'm going to keep on practicing death because guess what? Even before, this is a subconscious acknowledgement that we have, even before I came to the conclusion that I was going to die based on the report that I received from my doctor, I had already written myself off and I was already dead. I come from multiple generations that are dead, that practice death. All of my siblings, the world I see is not even worth living, so I'm going to just keep on dying. So let me expedite the process. That's a people that is possessed by the complex. So you become the complex. And that is a great example, I believe, brothers and sisters, for the reality of our people in every aspect. We don't stop a thing because we believe there's no hope. Why? Because somebody's defined for us that there is no hope. And this is your predetermined destiny. You're not powerful enough. Well, I can't change that. Why? Because I'm inferior. We may not use that verbiage, but hell, we believe it to be true. I'm not good enough. I'm not adequate enough. I don't believe in myself enough. I don't believe in the existence of my people enough. Because I'm seeing these men and women that I perceive to be greater than me, more knowledgeable, more adequate, more well-spoken and articulate, and they haven't solved the issue. I'm still in this condition. So if they couldn't do it, what the hell can I do? Not understanding that we all have a piece and portion to add to the pie, and it's our ability to contribute to the success of our people, which allows us to have the desired outcome that is needed. It's not an individual Superman perceived reality that we've been bought to believe by the European thought when they practice group economics, when they practice the power of family, when they practice unity, where you never hear white people, Asian people, even Hispanic people say, we're not a monolith. The sickness is us, but it's not us in the sense that you are innately sick. So the hope that we have is that we can come out of the complex, because the complex is not natural to us as a people. It's a learned conditioning that has been accumulated over hundreds of years that we've been victimized with. But guess what? Enough of us has come into the midst that we can say enough is enough. Just like the end of a sporting event, somebody calls game and then that's it. Well, we're calling this time is up. This world is over. This reality that we've been victimized by has come to a close. And a new paradigm, a new zeitgeist has appeared. And not just the thought in the minds of the people, but the reality based on their behavior. And so it's now more than ever time to relinquish the paternal, psychogenetic father through our socialization that we have been subordinate to. And that's the white centeredness in white society and an inferior complex that we have assumed. How do we regain our responsibility? One, and I'm speaking to the men now. You have to be taught, you have to be trained, you have to learn. No men in human existence have become men just for the mere fact that they have the male reproductive parts or they reach a certain age that they're now accredited the title of being a man. Because they produce a child, they have assumed the role of being a father. That they've had sex or even had the ceremonial ritual of a wedding become a husband. No, you have to have a rites of passage. You have to be trained on the social and cultural norms of a people that identify those roles and those responsibilities that are inculcated in those roles. And you have to be governed by something that's greater than yourself. You have to be held accountable by those other than yourself and your own hedonistic whims. You have to evolve into a collective and not an individual. That's what it means to be a man. That's what it means to be responsible. And that's what it means to reverse the reality in which we've been victimized by. When you possess a complex, you are possessed by that complex. This individual reality that we've succumbed to that has us thinking that we're the man and we can lean on our own understanding, we self-made. I was just talking about it last night. I love Nipsey Hussle and what he represented to a larger degree, but one of the greatest fallacies that he repetitively shared to the public is that he's his own man, that he's self-made, as if that is a reality that we need to promulgate. There is no power in individuality. There's only power in unity. So teaches the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Our unity is greater than any atomic or nuclear weapon. What does that mean? That means that you understand the power of unifying yourself with your brother and sister and formulating the necessary strategy and socio-cultural reality that allows you to be responsible for your salvation. How do we become responsible? We submit ourselves to the reality that we don't have the answers alone and that we must go through a process of training and learning. You look at the training, the teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, whatever you think you've heard about him, I would implore you to take a deeper look, to take another look, to visit his words and to experience the life-giving teachings that he has taught the black man and woman in America, but globally for 44 prolific years. And then make an intelligent decision on your own. Look at our spiritual leader, Ben-Ami, who was a spiritual child of those like the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, where he was inspired by the nation. Whether he did something separate or not, his premise was rooted in us returning back to a mind that is of God. Study his teachings. I'm a student of both, so I implore you to study both and marry the two and see what resonates with you, because the truth is evident. But it must be taught. And then immerse yourself into a brotherhood of like-minded individuals. If it's 3 or 4, that's the power of numbers that you need. But if everybody is centered on the premise of what we're speaking about at this present moment, you will have success. It's undeniable. Undeniable. Next step. Do not shun who you are and where you are. Accept it, embrace it, And if you're still not pleased with it, change it. But change it knowing that I want to take on the hardest task that I can personally take on for my self-improvement. Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is another German novelist and writer in the 1800s, had a line. They said, we're responsible for everything that we do, and we're responsible for everything that everyone else does. Like, damn, that's a heavy statement. It's like, well, I ain't responsible for what no other Negro do or think. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But this is how I kind of broke it down and decompartmentalized it. What if the responsibility I have for self is rooted in such a committed pursuit of truth and elevating of consciousness that is not just perceivable in my own subconscious, but also my conscious mind, because it bears the material fruit of a person who is serious and diligent and consistent in his pursuit of change, now has the ability to influence and inspire others, that they themselves find their own mission and purpose in the burden or perceived burden of responsibility, find the blessing in it and enjoy it and take it on and master it to the best of their ability, which unlocks their life purpose. Now I'm responsible for what everybody else does because I understand the interconnectedness of our people. The power of the domino is that once you touch the first one, it has the ability to affect the rest of the hundred or thousands or how far it extends to. Once you've been touched by the truth of responsibility that is given to us by our Creator, embrace it and pursue it with all thy soul, thy heart, thy might. The effect that it has is tremendous. Then we're able to produce the necessary ecosystem, i.e. family, community, and nation that changes this trajectory. The responsibility of salvation is ours. We dare not look to another what we can do for ourselves. My sister who was murdered in Springfield, black men, that falls on us. I don't know all of the realities of it, so I'm not going to speak to it with a sense of absoluteness or emphaticness. But what I will say is, irrespective to the dynamics that were played out, if she had a man that she could call instead of the police, and we know that merely calling the police, even in the sense of help, they end up murdering the one that called to pursue a possible assailant around the area or somewhere else, and they end up getting murdered. That has happened far too often because, again, they don't see a separation. The enemy is the enemy, and your skin is your uniform. World War II, former American soldiers said that when the U.S. Army had captured a platoon of German soldiers that they were then taken back as POWs, that they were in a cramped space, and that when it was time to feed them, because they were prisoners of war, so they weren't there to kill them, this particular case, the orders were to bring them back, so they had to feed them because they had to be in somewhat of good health. Their soldiers ate with the American soldiers, and the black soldiers had to eat somewhere else or outside. Because that Nazi uniform, that swastika that was on their arm, was not greater of a threat than your black skin. And your black skin is not just helped them in that war, but every war that America's ever had since its 248 years of existence. This ain't hate teaching that we giving. But sometimes the mentality of our white centeredness makes us create an illusionary reality that these things don't exist or there's something in the past that is still evident today. How do we know? Because a white officer who shouldn't even went in the damn house who was several feet away from a black lady that had a pot of boiling water, threatened to say, "I'll shoot you in the head." Because she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." I don't know if she was being witty or she, something. Not blaming the sister. But he knew, oh man, this is justifiable reason. This is a just reason and cause for me to murder her, irrespective of my camera being on, whatever. Ain't nothing gonna happen to me. At most, I may get fired, but I think if we look at the record, he had been since 2020 or 2022, some small period of time, 6 different police departments. So it is reason to believe that this is his first rodeo relative to killing black people. But let's say it is. There was no real life-threatening reality because even if that boiling water did reach him, if she did throw it, even though it was shown on camera that she was sitting it down and she was apologizing, he killed her in the head. What has changed? What is different? Our sympathetic nervous system, how our body details and deals with danger through the fight or flight system, has been rewired through our psychological and socio-cultural conditioning that we don't even understand the danger that we're in and the realities of those who we face. And because of that rewiring, that empathetic circuitry rewiring, we have created a behavior that is what we believe to be rooted in logic that works against our own best self-interest. And you can't change your behavior without changing your reality. And that's the reality of your identity. And then the experiences emotionally and socially that come with the removing of yourself from that previous form of thought. We have assumed the identity, the illusory, created, fabricated identity of being equal or of being the same as our enemy. American, not in the sense that we were born here, but American in the sense that we're the same as our white counterparts. And that we're one and the same. So far from the truth. Only way you can rewire your neurological pathways to have a psychology of true self-identity. So I said we're the most selfish people in the world, but hate doing for self. It's through truth. And the truth that we have to understand is the responsibility that goes with truth. That means it's action that must be taken after that truth is absorbed, first acknowledged, absorbed, and attained, then we have to put it into play. So, it's my first episode back. We're going to be going on and on as we continue to grow and develop. I want to thank Sister Amina for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum so much. I love her so much and appreciate her and her wonderful husband who may Allah be pleased with, who was a spiritual father and uncle to me, Brother Munir Muhammad and the Crow family. Muhammad Speaks News. Peace, peace, peace. Assalamu alaikum. And all of those who are tuning in now and in the future, I appreciate you so very much. Prince's Power Hour podcast is the new branding. See my little thing somewhere on the screen. Little logo we came up. We're going to get it back going. I'm back stationary in the city. All praises due to God for that. And so we will be back on. I will be off next week because I have to host a festival, Lollapalooza, but I will make up for it sometime during the week. So it may not be Saturday. It may be before or shortly after. But otherwise, we will be every Saturday. We're going to get this thing going. And I'm going to set an exact time. So please share and like in the comment section. Please leave your opinions, your comments, or any questions, and let's create a community around it because we're going to approach this thing based on truth, man. And we're going to dive into these critical concepts as they come up and as we continue to build a more equitable reality where we can truly be our Black, authentic selves. Also, I have an announcement coming up soon, but I'm going to hold off on it. Special announcement, another role that I will be fulfilling in regards to the redemption of our people and the acquisition of power, not just here domestically, but globally. With that being said, I thank you for listening. I leave you as I greeted you in the words of peace. Shalom alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings to you all.
On my way to